G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and welcome to Getting Started in the Horus Heresy 2.0. Today we're going to be looking at the Dark Angels Legion, and there's going to be a pattern with these first set of videos that come out. So I'm going to knock over all of the legions very quickly. The video is going to be done in two parts. There'll be a first part, which I'll do 18 of. That'll be what to buy just to get your foot in the door with that legion. The second video will be on tactics and where to go to expand the force. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend, obviously, a starter box like this. I'm also going to recommend additional upgrades and such that you could use. Now, I firmly believe in shopping third-party or printing accessories for your miniatures and not just picking only Games Workshop stuff. Not everyone, of course, has access to 3D printers. Maybe there's some sort of prohibitive measures that are preventing you from being able to get third-party parts. I understand this. So I target these at people who are new into the hobby, or maybe taking their first steps with it, or they've never stopped and stepped outside of Games Workshop before. And for those people who may not be comfortable with that, we therefore start with Games Workshop as the baseline. Now, with that in mind, the first thing I'm going to assume is that you bought this boxed set. That you bought the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness. So you have 40 Power Armored Space Marines, you have 2 Praetors, you have a Contemptor Dreadnought, you have 10 Cataphractii Terminators, and you have a Spartan. Where do we go from there? Well, the very first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get rules for your Dark Angels. So, the Liber Astartes Loyalist Legiones Astartes Army Book. That is the starting point for you. So this is going to have the rules for the Dark Angels, as well as for the White Scars, Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Blood Angels, Ultramarines, Salamanders, Iron Hands, and the Raven Guard. Now, you've got a starter set, you've got your rules. What next? Well, I would suggest a Dark Angels transfer sheet like this one here, which has obviously unit markings, it has different wing markings, etc, etc. Now, how you want to paint your force, what wing you want to dedicate yourself to, that's a video 2 problem. Video 1 though, we're going to say that you just have a variety of options available to you that take you down the Dark Angels Hexagrammaton path. And to be able to choose accordingly from this what you think suits you best. So the next thing on my list, I would suggest the Dark Angels Legion Praetor in Cataphractii armor from Forge World. This miniature allows you to bring a character straight away that is armored correctly to join your Cataphractii Terminator squads. The Cataphractii Terminator squads, of course, are going to ride in a Spartan. Therefore, if you're going to have them do that, or you want to have a character join the squad, your best bet is to pick a character that suits them best. And this model, who is kitted out and designed to fit the Legion from the get-go, is the perfect choice for that. It's a simple first addition to make to the army in order to expand what your force is capable of doing. Another option here is, depending how much money you're willing to sink into the project, is to buy the Deathwing Knights from Games Workshop's 40k Dark Angels range, because they come with these excellent robed bodies and the robed heads. Now, what I would suggest you are capable of doing is using either the Cataphractii or Tartarus legs and arms and shoulder pads and mounting them onto these bodies to turn what are really plain Deathwing Terminators into very interesting Terminators. You could magnetize on a back banner, for example, and now you can pull double duty as a command squad. You could magnetize on, say, the Apothecary parts, as per the model in the middle of this photo, and create a Primus Medicae or a Apothecary HQ option as well. So it's giving you some variety there, as well as giving you other upgrade parts like the hand leaning on the sword in the bottom picture, for example. You could translate that pose over directly. So it's a very interesting way of adding some more character to your basic plastic kits, because not everyone is going to look at the Cataphractii included in this box and think, oh yeah, that looks like a Dark Angel. But if you can imagine taking that Dark Angel and then taking one of these Deathwing Knights bodies and having that hooded torso attached to those cataphractii legs with the same cataphractii arms and shoulders, it will feel very Dark Angels. And look, yeah, okay, it's not technically cataphractii armor. No one's going to notice or care because it will look pretty damn cool. So next move is something like Asriel Supreme Grandmaster. Yes, the model is getting on. Yes, it's aging. But it's relatively cheap, and the Watcher in the Dark makes a good little marker or objective token. Okay, very handy for in the Heresy. Could use it as a wound marker, can use it to mark an important point on the table. But Asriel Grandmaster has some very useful and interesting parts on him, especially the sword and the back banner and backpack. So you could directly use him and scavenge parts of this model in order to put them onto the Praetors that come in the basic box set. So, for example, if you took this miniature here, which doesn't feel very Dark Angels, and you were to put Asriel's backpack, which is very Dark Angels, onto the model, it would add a lot more dimension to him. You could potentially also salvage or scavenge Asriel's head from this model and again port it across onto this guy as an example of what could be done. So it's a way of turning a model that's, again, in Games Workshop terms, relatively cheap, and upgrading it into something a bit more visually appealing for your Legion. You don't have to do it. In fact, you could even just use the Asriel model. There is nothing that really says that he doesn't fit in with those miniatures, apart from he might be a little bit smaller. And hey, the fix to that, put a little bit of plastic art underneath his feet, or place him on a bit of cork or whatever, depending how you're basing your miniatures. Just raise him up artificially. It'll be fine. Another good option is Asmodai. So Asmodai here, you could actually utilize him in several ways. So straight off the bat, the miniature will fit perfectly into 30k as he is. Being a robed miniature, all of the armor really is kind of hidden away underneath the robes. And what little armor is showing is very stylized, and you could call it Artificer armor. So I would suggest you could use him as a chaplain. You could also count him as a librarian if you really wanted to. Or you could take parts from this miniature, like I've suggested on others, and use those parts, put them onto other miniatures in order to make them more interesting. So for example, you could cut his hand off at the wrist that he's holding the Crozius with up in the air, and you could place that Crozius straight onto this miniature, the Mark 6 Commander painted in the Imperial Fist scheme. Replace his right hand with that Crozius. It's, again, a way of taking what are relatively stock miniatures from the starter set and adding a tiny bit of flavour to them to really make them feel like they're your army, that they represent what you want out of Dark Angels. So, going on from there, more Dark Angels upgrades, so even simpler. Already comes with the Dark Angels Angels of Death sword, which is, I think, a lot better size than the one supplied on this miniature, and obviously plastic, glue it straight on. You could also take one of these helmets, the Mark 7 helmet, who cares, it's a Mark 7 helmet, just cut the tiny little bit of chin out of it on the grill, and it will look like a Sarum pattern helmet, which is a very Heresy era helmet. You could give him the robed head, for example, or even the Dark Angel's beaky helmet. Why not? There's also obviously those symbols, the little dagger with the keys on it, all the little bits in this box that can be used to accessorize either of these two characters in order to make them feel more like the Dark Angels that we all know from the game system. Further options. Over at Forge World, we have Legion upgrade sets. So the heads here are a great option for just sprinkling throughout the army. You don't need to put on every single model. The only Legion I would suggest putting specialist helmets on for every model would be Thousand Suns, because of the psychic hood being built in. That's what the whole Egyptian crest is. But on every other Legion, just take some different helmets and spread them throughout. It just adds a little bit of character. It makes them feel less uniform, less like it's all just clones of the same monopose model, which is what you don't want. So these heads, buy, say, 2 packs, right? 20 of these heads. You don't even have to use Friar Tuck in the middle at the top. You could just use the helmeted heads, the 9 of those, and you'll end up with 18 helmets, and then you can just spread them through your 40 plastic Space Marines nicely. Going further, the Dark Angels Legion Deathwing Companions. Now, they can be used as command squads, and they will find their way into many Dark Angels armies. I really like them though, because they feel like characters. And that means that buying just one of this box, or this set of miniatures here, and then converting them, tweaking them, putting different weapons on them, you can turn this into a range of different HQ options, because in Horus Heresy there are things called consuls, which is, there's 2 levels of HQ, basically. Praetors, who lead entire big legion formations, and then there's centurions, who lead, say, a company within the legion, maybe 50, 100 people, depending on the legion. Well, those centurions are then broken down to different types, such as a Master of the Forge, or a Primus Medicae, who's like an apothecary. There are reconnaissance specialists, there are siege specialists, etc., etc. If you take these miniatures here, you have the basis of what look like HQ units, and you can modify them to accommodate for all those different types of centurions. And so buying this one set will save you a lot of pain and effort converting models to try and look like different HQs, and will allow you to simply kit bash just with a few arm swaps here and there, and turn them into models that really exemplify the different character traits that you can get out of the Dark Angels. Another option, of course, is the Inner Circle Knight Cenobium. So considering that you're going to start the game with a whole bunch of tactical space marines, and you're also going to have Cataphracti, and you're going to have your Spartan. Well, you can really build on that by taking Inner Circle Knight Cenobium and going 5 or 10 of those as some really heavy hitters to add some, we'll call them monster slayers, to the force. So a nice little thing that you can do early on, and again, very, very characterful models, which means that with a little bit of work, they will turn into fantastic Cataphracti armoured HQ options for your force. And last but not least is the Dark Angels Legion Interrupter Squad. Now, the Interrupters have their own entry in the Dark Angels Legion, but what I really like about them is that because of the way they're armed, their plasma burners are kind of like plasma guns. So, I would suggest maybe magnetize the heavy weapon onto the squad, but you could buy these models and it would save you having to make a tactical support squad with plasma guns, because this unit can pull double duty. You can use them as interrupters in one game, use them as Legion Plasma Support Squad in another game, and it just gives you that option. The weapons also being very Dark Angels and very cool, make nice upgrades to put into veteran squads. So a combination of the Interrupters mixed in with the Deathwing Companions, the 2 sets combined together could make for a very fascinating style of Legion Veteran Tactical Squad, which is an option in the Elite's choices for the Legions. Anyway, that's about it for this video. We've just discussed a few options you can do with customizing and building up the army and buying some basic fundamentals for it. What we'll do in the next video is we're going to go look at the Emperor's Children, next Legion up on the list, and we're going to go through that way until we've covered off, like I said at the start, on all 18 Legions. Then we're going to start, once I've got the book in my hands, going through the rules and where I would personally expand the Legion, or different directions you could expand the Legion into, and my suggestion on how to do so, again with the existing model range. Then once we have done that, once we've gone through the Legion styling, which is what this is, once we go through expanding the Legion and tactics of the Legion, we'll then look at what conversion opportunities do we have outside of Games Workshop and Forge World. So all in all, I'd be expecting us to end up somewhere around the 54 videos mark by the time we've done that. So that's a lot of work for me to churn out over the coming months. But hopefully it gives all of you who are new into this game a little bit of perspective about what's coming up. Anyway, that's all from me, Mac with the Outer Circle. Hope you enjoy this new series of Getting Started in Horus Heresy, and I'll catch you all on the next one.